All right. Good morning, class. I mentioned to you that I wanted to record this week's lecture. I know next week will be an extremely busy week, and I wanted to make sure that I did my part to give you all some flexibility in order to participate in class and receive this lecture. So, as you know, you guys do have a final project in which I would ask that you complete 5 slides that kind of outlines what you would define as a diversity strategy for your organization. Now, it can be a fictitious organization. It can be an organization that you currently work for now. But my goal is to get you to just, really design and conceptualize what you think an inclusion and diversity program would look like, for your particular organization. To kind of help you with this, what I want to do is I want to kind of talk to you about uh, how I'm kind of looking to set up a inclusion and diversity program for Department of Defense, particularly with the Navy. And so, what I want to do with this lecture is I just want to kind of talk to you a little bit about what I've done with some of my initiatives, some of my way ahead initiatives, and maybe in that vein that will kind of prompt you with some ideas for what you need to do to get your thoughts down on paper for your final project. So with that, let me try to share my screen with you. All right. And hopefully you all can see all of this information okay. Let me just put this on slideshow mode, so it might be a little bit better. Okay, hopefully that's better. All right. So I want to kind of walk you all through what I've done for my organization, and hopefully what you all can do is kind of see the big picture with how this all kind of ties together. So first, I want to start off by saying this is very important because um, having an organization who can really leverage diversity and inclusion, I think it improves readiness, it optimizes performance, but even bigger than that, you know, diversity should just be used from a business context. It should also be used because it's good for humanity. So we need to make sure that we always continuously look at it from that vein too. So let me just walk you through this graphic. The first thing I did was I looked at how inclusion and diversity is defined in my particular organization. And what I mean by that is you have a lot of organizations, they'll say diversity and inclusion, whereas I say inclusion and diversity. And so the reason I use the word inclusion first is because I want to ensure that we all look at inclusion as a priority. We can always go and just pull demographic information and say, hey, from a diversity standpoint, here's what we have. But it's the how you leverage that diversity is what's tough for an organization. And so if you repeatedly just say inclusion and diversity, I think that just kind of reinforces inclusion as a priority. So that's one of the first things I did was just kind of universally standardize that nomenclature for this particular capability. So inclusion and diversity, not diversity and inclusion. The next thing I did was I participated in some discussions about the Navy's core values. And what I had learned was that those values had not been updated in probably almost 30 years. And I think with what we're seeing in society today, with the social issues, the injustice issues, um, it was high time that the Navy really did their part with looking at those values. And so, um, in talking to a group of leaders, we kind of kicked around a few words that we thought that should be included, because I think the Navy's values were courage, honor, and duty is the current values. So what we did was we made a recommendation to include the word respect. And if you include the word respect, that has touch points with a number of areas. We need to show respect for each other. We need to show respect for the organization. Respect for family, respect for diversity. And in doing so, that's kind of consistent with some of the other services too. So um, this is going to be a culture change, and values are part of culture. So getting that service to update the core values, that is huge. That was huge. Um, we have a number of other I&D initiatives in play. One of them is succession management, and so a lot of times there's a perception that minority groups don't get a fair shake at development opportunities, and research and data points actually show that. It's actually apparent in the Navy, and so one of the things I want to do is I want to design a succession management model that shows all of the key positions at the senior level across the Navy. But what I want to do is I want to kind of force some transparency. So with that succession management model, I want leaders to kind of show who they have in the pipeline in terms of development. And it's my hope that they will include some diversity in those folks that they're mentoring for development. So having to show that slate with who they have in the pipeline, that just increases transparency, and I think it just kind of adds to the organization's commitment to do their part to offer opportunities for minorities. Let me go down to the bottom left. I want to continue with the task force. This was not my initiative. This was an initiative that was already in play when I arrived there. And so what was happening is the Navy leadership actually assigned a task force to conduct, in simple terms, a barrier analysis. Look at all these areas that present inequalities for minorities in terms of career advancement, access to information, decision making, and we found there are a number of things that we're starting to uncover. That task force has a very good framework of lines of efforts and objectives that they want to tackle. They range from recruiting, retention, performance management. They're looking at everything. This particular task force is actually going to set the framework for sustained systems to kind of continuously look at how we want to assess these inequalities. So this particular piece of inclusion and diversity is going to be critical. It's going to be critical moving forward. And I'll explain more how that's going to be connected to being able to sustain some of this stuff. But what that task force is doing is actually going to be monumental for 20, 30 years from now, because some of the things that they're uncovering, it's going to help us reshape processes. It's going to help us reshape policy, systems, for the better good of minorities and for readiness for the Navy. Reverse mentoring. Reverse mentoring is another concept that I want to throw out there, because what I want to force is I want to force senior leaders to have more targeted conversations with minority members. So right now we're having these listening sessions that are going on right now where we're kind of capturing, and actually that's one thing that the task force is doing. They're conducting these listening sessions, and they're capturing all this input, from a climate perspective about lack of engagement with senior leaders or experiences that they're going through as a sailor. And that kind of prompts me to want to design this reverse mentoring framework. I want to have senior leaders have one-on-one sessions with some of these minorities, so and not just from a professional development perspective, but from an experience perspective also, because some of these minority members may be in some of these group talks and they may not want to speak up. But if you give them an opportunity to talk in a more intimate setting with a senior leader, they may be more prone to speak up about some of the things that they're kind of experiencing. So that reverse mentoring model, I think it'll go hand in hand with the succession management approach that I'm proposing also. And lastly, and to me, probably the most important thing is I'm actually going to introduce a culture model, and I'm actually going to lecture you guys about this particular culture model, if not next week, but the week after. But this is going to be huge because this culture model is what I'm going to use to really link the barrier analysis, the barrier analysis what we're getting from the task force, the input from the listening sessions, um, and just culture period. I want to link all of that stuff together into a comprehensive model. And then I want to be able to take that information and benchmark it against thousands of other industry organizations, other government organizations. And then based off of that benchmark, it's going to give me a culture score. That culture score will then allow me to generate further gap analysis so I can generate action plans, so each organization will have an action plan based off of their culture score. So it just kind of lets the workforce know that we hear you. We know we have issues. Here's our get well plan that we're going to fix it. And then just on a continuous basis, analyze these barriers for inequalities, analyze the culture for the organization, and then update that get well strategy, and then report out to you what we're doing as a leadership team to kind of solve some of these issues. And so those are just some of the initiatives that I have in place that are going to be working. So hopefully some of the things that I just explained to you, maybe they might kind of trigger some thoughts to you so you can start to formulate your particular strategy for your inclusion and diversity plan for this academic requirement. And think about it, don't make this just an academic requirement. If you can tie it to like a real world business problem at your organization, try to do that too. That's what it's all about, is really capturing the spirit of scholar practitionership with these classes. And I don't want to just make it just an academic assignment. I want it to be something meaningful for you. So so that ends my lecture for you. I hope it was meaningful. I look forward to capturing you guys on a Zoom again for another lecture. But for this week, I know with the nature of everything that's going to be going on, I wanted to give you guys some flexibility. So I opted just to record this week's lesson to give you an opportunity to kind of just watch it at your leisure. So I hope all of you have a fantastic week, and the rest of this weekend I hope is good for you also. So thank you for your time.